Welcome, everybody. It's so nice to see people in the same room again. Are you having a good time at Phenom so far? All right, I like to hear that. My name is Stacy Smeal. I'm a product manager here at Phenom. So it's an honor for me to bring you through the Candidate Hub experience. We are all about experiences here at Phenom, as you have learned. But what we have come to understand is a lot of time the candidate experience is separated out. Right? So I'm going to bring you through a more centralized, comprehensive experience for our candidates. So as you're familiar with, our mission is truly to help 1 billion people find the right job. So I want to drive that home because this is something that you're going to see echoed over and over again through this Candidate Hub experience. So quickly, I'm going to go through some introductions of why we're talking about this. We'll talk about the problem that we're really looking to solve. There's multiple of them. Talk about our POV, the approach, and I'll bring you through a demo so you can see what the experience is starting to look like. All right, so the Phenom Candidate Hub is a brand new transformative experience. This is something that has a very elegant user experience and is meant to deliver personalized recommendations and resources to candidates. What we understand with candidates, the feedback that we've gotten across all of our years with partnering with our customers is that they don't have a lot of visibility into what's going on in the process, right? It seems in a lot of cases they're submitting their information and it's disappearing into a black hole. So they need more transparency and visibility every step of the process. We're going to be focusing specifically on the interview process and solving that clearly. We also understand a lot of our recruiters, they're feeling more pressure than ever to deliver increased hiring outcomes, essentially. They have fewer resources than ever, working with smaller teams, working with outdated tools, but they are still asked to deliver and fast. So we're going to help support them as well. This isn't just about our candidates. And of course, our recruitment marketers, always looking to enhance that employment brand. So how do we drive that through the process, making sure candidates aren't pulling off anecdotal information out of Reddit or some bad reviews off of Yelp? How do our recruitment marketers keep control of that messaging as they're navigating through? So as we mentioned before, the main problem that we're solving with Candidate Hub is that the candidates, they need visibility into what's going on in the interview process. If the details are not easy to find about what is involved in the process, what the FAQs are about your company, what the culture is like, they're not going to stick around your website. They're going to go searching on Google. They're going to read message boards. They're going to go on people's blogs. You don't have control over that messaging, right? That could be a problem. So the recruitment marketers, this is where their focus is. They want to have that control. They want to deliver that information to candidates so candidates don't feel that they have to go looking for it elsewhere, perhaps picking up outdated information or things that aren't reasonably supportive of what the actual employment brand is going for. And if you aren't keeping candidates in the loop every step of the process, letting them know what to expect, what their next steps are, every detail down to what they should wear to their interview, they're gonna move on, right? There is no shortage of job opportunities, so if they feel uncomfortable if somebody else is providing more information for an interview somewhere else, you're gonna miss out on the best talent. They're going to go for a better employment brand, a better interview experience. So our point of view with our Candidate Hub is that we're bringing talent acquisition teams a way to deliver transparency, consistency, personalization, and automation into the candidate experience. And we're still keeping the human factor in, right? So you'll see this trend and this being repeated over and over again. In Phenom, when we're adding automations and we're using generative AI, it's really meant to make the recruiters, the hiring managers, the talent acquisition team as a whole more effective, delivering the types of information results they need to execute on decisions. We do not make decisions for our talent acquisition partners. So our point of view, what we're doing with our Candidate Hub, creating a centralized place where the candidate can go and get critical information about the job that they're applying to. Now this is specific to each job, so I'll drive that home as we're going through our demo as well. When we talk about automations, we are going to go way beyond just a transactional chatbot. So we're all pretty familiar with chatbots, ask and respond. It's usually pretty helpful for a lot of people, but we want to take that to the next step. How do we allow it to learn from input? How do we help generate content that is helpful? And we also want to provide a way to help empower the TA team to do their job as efficiently as possible. All right, so let's jump right into a demo. What you're seeing here is the starting page of a candidate. So Kevin has already started the application process for a sales manager job. At this point, he's being invited to continue on in his process. Now, before he moves forward and answers this email, what you need to know is he's had a couple of interviews. So this is multi-round interview process. What we're talking about is more of a knowledge worker role. If you were in Mahi's opening session today, he talked about job zones 1 through 4. In this example, it's more of a zone 3 or 4 type of a job example we're talking through, but keep in mind, Candidate Hub is here to support job zones 1 and 2. So we can support recruiters and hiring managers and candidates of all positions. All right, so Kevin is going to he's going to click on that link in his email, and he's going to land right in this personalized hub. He's going to get greeted, and he's going to know exactly where he is in the process. So as I mentioned, he's completed a couple of interviews as part of this as well. He has clear visibility into how many interviews are coming up next, who they're with, what the duration is, and now he has full access to self-schedule those new pending interviews that he has to complete out his process. If he goes ahead and clicks on one of those interviews to interact with it, here's extensive detail about the job and what the interview process is going to entail. So on the right, what you can see is real-time availability for the interviewers that are assigned to this particular job and this candidate. But in addition to that, on the left, you'll see now Kevin can meet his interviewers. So beyond a name and a face, he doesn't have to jump out to LinkedIn and review their profile. He can actually click on one of these interviewer profiles, and we have controlled information right here. So we can pull this in, or it can be added manually. But now Kevin can learn about who his interviewers are. Maybe he has something in common with them. But this way, it's kind of leveling the playing field, right? Interviewers often come prepared to interviews, knowing extensive information about the candidate, whether it's their LinkedIn, their application, any of the interview questions that have been responded to before. So now the candidate has some visibility as well. So it feels more like a meeting of people who have some context on each other, leveling that playing field for the candidates. All right, and as we scroll down, I want to show you a couple of things. So as we mentioned, the things to know, super helpful, all the way down to what you need to wear for your interview. But if you continue further down this detailed interview guide, you see that we have generated tips and tricks. So these can be articles, these can be video, and the concept of these is that they are created using generative AI. So as Sebastian has shown you, we've been talking about Phenom X Plus all day, right? It's the assistant that you're gonna have by your side. Any questions that candidates have asked about this sales manager role are gonna be fed into a library of information that is going to be used to generate articles and content. So you no longer have to go through that information manually, generate these help guides and FAQs. You're gonna have recommendations internally as a recruiting team to see what candidates are asking and how the recommended responses should look like. And of course, the recruitment team would have full capability to edit those or accept the recommended articles. So this would be automatically generated content. And of course, we would be remiss if we didn't include the job details. Okay, so the full job description, and if you'd like, you could actually click in and see that embedded video. And this could be a day in the life video. It could be a realistic job preview, right? So getting rid of those walls of text. A lot of you guys have really great video content on your YouTubes. Here's a great place to put it, centralized. Again, so the candidate doesn't have to jump around to different channels to find out, what is it actually like to work in this role? Is it different from other organizations and their sales manager role? And as Kevin moves forward, he can actually go ahead and click to schedule an interview. He'll probably choose October 6th and confirm that date. Perfect. And he gets the immediate confirmation. Now, once that interview is scheduled, you'll see new information available. Not only is there an interview prep guide, but there's an interview coach. So let's talk through this interview prep guide. This is brand new. Our candidates actually have the ability, if they wanted to, they can listen to this description and these answers. So if they happen to be on a run, walking their dog in the morning, they don't want to read their phone and trip over themselves, let's just have this go through my Bluetooth headphones, and I'm going to learn about what is the sales manager role at this Phenom, or at Aaron interview, and what is it like to work in this role. So this, again, can be used, can be created using generative AI. So pulling in across your organization, are there multiple sales manager job descriptions that have been created? Can we take the best of that and create a brand new description of what is a sales manager? As you continue further, this interview prep guide will allow Kevin to actually put that information into action. So this is really cool. Pay attention to this. What we're going into is a practice interview. And what we want to make absolutely clear to the candidate is that the experience Kevin is about to go through is purely for him. We are not recording his practice interview. We are not grading his practice interview. This information is not going to be delivered to recruiters. This is just for the candidate. How often do you have that type of guidance and material just for the candidate? This is kind of a differentiator, yeah? So once Kevin kind of digests this information, he can go ahead and get started. And here's Kevin. He's our sample candidate. And here's another interaction where we can use generative AI. So we're not going to put a face, but we will have a voice that is pulling in, like Fiona said in the last presentation, if you were here. Generative AI can actually create interview questions that are different but relevant to the sales manager position. So if Kevin wants to go through several practice interviews, we'll be able to support that, and he won't be answering the same questions every time. Not only that, but the generative AI and the automations that we have will be creating a real-time transcript. So bot will be, of course, reporting out what it's asking, but also creating a transcript of what the candidate is saying in response. Now, as Kevin goes through and answers a couple of questions, he can finish those out. You'll see once he finishes that, he can ask for feedback. And here's the culmination of where our AI is using those transcripts to compare Kevin to industry benchmarks. So all candidates that have gone through, answered information about the sales manager position, we're going to be able to give him, and only him, again, this is just for him to grow, we're going to give him an overall score, and then break that down into some suggestions and points that drove that overall score for him. So he'll be able to see the pace at which he's talking, how clear or articulate his words are, how many pauses. Now, with this information overall score, we can also generate improvement recommendations. So it's really nice to have these detailed scores and know what my words per minute are, but what do I actually do with that? So that's what the rest of this content is. This is, again, generated real time. Every time Kevin goes through this practice interview process, he's going to get fresh suggestions on what to do to improve. Now, maybe his words per minute don't change very drastically, but we're not going to give the same tips and suggestions every time. They may be in the same spirit of the feedback and how to put it into action, but it's not just a copy-paste response. It's going to improve, it's going to learn, it's going to use slightly different language to help guide and help Kevin understand how to improve in his interviews. Perfect. Okay, so this is really cool. As we've been talking about, Candidate Hub, right, this centralized process. Should you need to bring in your candidates for an in-house interview, they don't happen to be in your same town, you need to book flights for them or hotel reservations, you can actually upload their tickets right to the profile, right to the hub. Right? So instead of having to go back into your email, find the links or the thread that you have with this candidate, you can actually go find this candidate in their hub, give them their tickets, and let them know it's in the same spot you've been accessing the whole time. Check out your hub, it's there. There's also notifications. So if updates are happening in the candidate hub, Kevin will be kept up to date, so he knows when those tickets are available. So now you can see the third dot is filled in, right? Let's say Kevin has gone ahead, he's got his interview scheduled, it is completed. If you scroll down, we've only got one interview left, and you can see he's completed all of these mock interviews. So he's trying to improve his score. He's really interacting with the hub, and that's exactly what we want to see. So what happens from the recruiter side, right? This can't be completely disconnected. The recruiter's got to be able to give some information. So here's what Rachel would see as a recruiter. She gets that high-level dashboard visibility into what's going on with her jobs. And this, of course, could be trend lines, as we see. We can see new interviews that are popping up, bookmarked interviews as well. There could be, on the right here, you see, if you click on February 2nd, a couple of key interviews and candidate information that we want to interact with. So the sales manager interview. The recruiter can actually edit the information on a candidate-by-candidate basis. So if they need to get that finite and detailed, they can. or they can set general settings for the sales manager role itself. If you give one more click to edit that interview, here's where you can see the configurations to be able to have control over essentially what information appears in that candidate hub for Kevin. So again, going back to the concept of being able to support all zones of jobs, we've been talking through a sales manager role. That's highly a knowledge worker role, zone 3 or 4. But this could be supportive of those more frontline roles, zone 1 or 2. So for example, this might be in the hands of the hiring manager. If the hiring manager has to do their hiring themselves, this is something that they can go in, configure, and it's still appropriate on a candidate by candidate basis. All right, continue on. Perfect, here we go. Our recruiter has just uploaded their tickets, and now they're available on the candidate hub. All right, and that is our first overview and introduction of the candidate hub. We have a few minutes to take questions, if anybody has any. Yeah?
Can the recruiter see if the candidate has done mock interviews?
So the question was, can the recruiter see if the candidate has done mock interviews? At this point, no, but I'd be interested to hear more about that. So is it the visibility into interaction with the hub or how engaged the candidate is?
Yeah, exactly, to measure their engagement. And I wondered too,
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking about it, if they scored low, would that make them more likely to not show up on the interview or get discouraged?
That's a really good question. So the question again for people who are in the back, if the candidate scores really low on their mock interview, would that increase their chances of not showing up, increasing that ghosting rate, discouraging them even? While we can't control for every emotion that humans have, based on our research and our past experience, that's not the most likely scenario. Based on the guidance and the type of wording and phrasing that is used, we're certainly not going to tell somebody, you're in the red, you might as well just give up. We give the guidance in a way that is, here's where you are right now, and here's how you can move forward. So it's really meant to be supportive no matter what level you are at. So certainly that's not something we anticipate seeing, which would be an increase in drop-off or enhanced ghosting rate.
I love it, by the way.
Thank you, we love it too. She loves it. Oh, we've got a few questions. Yeah, Mike would help.
Thank you. Would we be able to upload our own interview questions?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. So in addition to the generative AI, you can of course upload your own questions. I know that was another question that was posed in the audience in our previous session with Sebastian and Phenom. Can you have your own questions? Because having that consistency levels the playing field across candidates. Of course, we're not going to take that away from you.
Does this require a sign-in at all from candidates to get into their candidate hub, or how is it accessed?
Great question. So since it's because it is on a job-by-job basis, it'll be accessible right through that link in their email. So as long as we have their email address, that link is going to be attached to the specific position that they're applying for, and they'll just be able to click and access it without having to remember yet another login.
Just a question, and I apologize if you already said this, but
Yeah.
can you customize with different departments? So maybe one department, they're more frontline, they don't need those mock interviews, but maybe another department would need that. Can you vary it?
Yes, this tool is meant to be configurable, so absolutely you can vary it by department.
Hello. I actually really loved it as well, just in case you were wondering. However, quite often with the kind of, all of us are spending our entire lives in meetings at the moment.
Right.
And emergency meetings come up and suddenly your interview panel's not available anymore. How is this going to help facilitate those situations where you suddenly have to, oh, they're no longer available, we need you to reschedule this?
Okay, that's a really good question. So, sorry for the visual, it must have lost its animation. That's great, we can look at this. So that's a really good question. How do we control for shifting schedules? Is that essentially the spirit of the question? Yeah. So when we were in the candidate hub, those date and time suggestions are based on an integration with the recruiter's calendar. So the recruiter that is assigned to that job, as long as they have their calendar up to date, will be able to give real-time availability to that candidate. In the worst case scenario, should your schedule shift on the day an interview is already scheduled, you would have to go through the process of canceling, but it is a click of the button, automated emails going through. But again, helping to plan and not have you come in and manually put in date and time availability. It's based on calendar integration and reading that information.
I might have missed this. Can the candidate opt out of the interviewing, the mock interview?
Sure, yeah, if they don't even want to open the hub, they don't have to. This is just meant to be kind of a support system. Give candidates something they've never had before. So essentially, not only are they feeling better about going into the interview, but hopefully they have a really positive impression of your company as well. So totally optional. Again, it's not something that is required or graded or meant to cause stress. It is meant to be something that brings joy to the candidate. Give them some clarity what to expect, and give them confidence as they're walking in. Good question.
Two quick questions. Is it a correct assumption that the candidate, if they apply to multiple jobs, will have multiple pages within the hub to visit, or is it all within one page on multiple jobs?
Yes, because there can be multiple steps in an interview, it can get quite messy to have those overlapping. So the idea is there would be one link per job.
Yeah, no, that's great. And the second question I had was, is there any capabilities to either deliver or receive documents, assessments, things like that through the hub?
So like self-assessment?
Could be, yeah. Or any assessment that needs to be delivered to a candidate, is that a place where it can be housed?
Okay, so the second question is, could the recruiter or hiring manager upload an assessment, send an assessment to the candidate through this hub, and have that be a vehicle to give this to the candidate? I would say that kind of muddies the use case of the candidate hub. There are different processes that we do support that help bring candidates through a more formal assessment process in a way that delivers a score back to the recruiter, right? So this is meant to be kind of removed from that process, to be a playground specifically for the candidate to feel low stress, low stakes. Let me go through this for my own growth. Now, if there were some growth guidance, materials, practice assessments, perhaps, that you wanted to put out, those types of materials could absolutely be uploaded to the portal, the hub.
Really love this, by the way. So one thing I'm curious about is the analytics that are going to be available to see, how many candidates are utilizing this as we look at the funnel and the conversion. Maybe more who are doing the practice interview. We are seeing those folks get offered. Just curious to understand the analytics that are going to be available for Candidate Hub.
Great question. We're all about analytics. So as you see here, what we're doing is combining our analytics to give some overall summary of every interaction, not really on a candidate by candidate basis, but maybe on a job by job basis, or if you want to break it down into certain metrics like days to hire. In terms of pulling in those analytics into other systems, I really encourage you to attend our Phenom keynote event tomorrow morning. I think it's at 8:30 or 9, where we're talking about the future of analytics and how we're going to tie them together across platforms. And I'm not going to give you a spoiler alert. I almost got too excited and took the thunder away from Adam Thompson. You'll find out. But absolutely, every step of the process, we want to help our recruiters to be more efficient. So not just putting this tool out there and hoping, the spaghetti sticks. We want you to be able to see, are the interactions working? Maybe we need to make some tweaks. Maybe the information is not landing with the candidate. So we will have some descriptive statistics as well as guidance on how to execute on those as well.
So I had two questions, and the first one was around analytics. So thank you to the gentleman who asked that question. So you had mentioned that the link to the candidate hub is sent via email. Is there capability to send via SMS or WhatsApp, or copy the link to send it that way?
You bet. Yeah. Great question. So we've gone through this whole example, and we've showed Kevin accessing this through his email. But we try to make our tools omni-channel, as we call it, so meeting the candidates where they are, being able to send them information and go through a process, whether it's on their phone, WhatsApp, on their computer. So this is actually something that can be delivered through SMS. Again, it would be a link to be able to get to the hub, but it is something that can be delivered through other channels as well. Great question.
Okay, and awesome questions. I think we have time for about one more, right? Is that what your word?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
that'd
one.
be great.
Thank you. Are there any concerns that candidates might be over-prepared and thus interview well and mask their red flags that would pop up post-hire?
That's a really interesting one. I thought you were trolling there for a second, but that's actually very interesting. Be too prepared and mask their red flags. Well, certainly that could go into the blanket statement of we can't control for every human variable. There are some very convincing liars out there. But the most common use case you're going to see is that's not the scenario. Of course, as we all know, when candidates are going through an application and hiring process, they are giving themselves a bit of an elevated experience, right? So they would rate themselves higher on self-assessments. They're going in, they're really going to play up their strengths. But what our guidance is helping them do is give examples that are more specific to this role. So talking about working at Aaron Industries specifically so that their answers have more context. So instead of digging in themselves and feeling like they need to generate content that sticks to you, they're going to be given the context and the guidance to be able to fold themselves into that scenario. Great. These are great questions. Thank you guys so much for attending. I hope you have a great day. We'll see you around.